There's 40 other people in the cell with you when you're in prison in Thailand. And you go into the cell at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Every day, it's the same. Your cell is in a cell block next to the prison yard. The cell is the size of a normal bedroom. And on one side, there's the rusty bars with the door to the cell that you go in through. White, hard concrete tiles on the floor and concrete walls. You're in there with 40 other men. In Thailand, most of them are from Thailand, about 10% from Burma, and might be one of two foreigners in there. Most of you sleep on the floor. Some of you sleep on a piece of wood that's fixed halfway up the room, and some of you sleep in bunks that are slung from the ceiling. The toilet is in the same room. It's at the back end of the room. You're designated a cell, and that's the cell you sleep in every night. And in that cell, you're designated a floor space to sleep on the floor. You don't have a bed or a mattress. You get a thin mat that is like a yoga mat. You lay it down on your spot, and then you lay down like this. One person right here next to you. One person right here next to you. Someone's right behind you, the head of the person behind you right next to your head. And someone at your feet. While I was there, I slept I was right in the middle of the room. Not a good spot, but not the worst spot. Because some people slept on the floor next to the toilet. The people that slept on the floor next to the toilet were young guys from Burma, because in Thailand, Burmese people are treated like a second-class citizen. Sometimes we would smoke in the toilet, so sometimes you'd smuggle tobacco up into the room at night, and then you could have a smoke. You'd wait for the guards. You'd wait for a time that the guards weren't passing. Then everyone who had basically been in on smuggling the tobacco in would say, "Hey, come on, it's time." Sometimes it's pretty difficult if you're a foreigner like me and everyone else is speaking Thai to get in on the smuggling and smoking, but sometimes I was able to. So they'd say, "Right, the guards are not here." I'd know because I'd be watching. Come and have a smoke. And then one by one, you'd go in, taking turns to have a smoke of the same cigarette. It was not a cigarette, it was a hand-rolled smoke. That was the little bit of fun that you could have in the cell. There was the closest thing to sex in the cell between other people that I saw was two guys jerking each other off. It's a funny story because, it was two of the younger guys from Thailand who were sleeping next to me here. So I didn't have a person long ways on this side of me. I was in the middle, this way, and on this side of me, there was a row of people like this, and then there was a wall. So I had the heads of these two younger guys next to me. They were funny. They were funny / annoying. Two younger guys. They used to joke around, and they used to jerk around as well. So a couple of times I noticed that they would jerk each other off. Now, it didn't. It was more amusing than bothering me. I'd seen some shit already, and I was just happy that that was the worst of the sexual activity that was going on in the cell. So I didn't really care. So one day, one of the guys next to me gestured, because he didn't speak any English, taps me and gestures, "Hey, will you jerk me off?" I said, "No." I gestured, "No." He wouldn't quit. He said, come on, do it." I said, "No." He says, come on. I said, "No." And he started crying. And what else could I tell you? There was one other foreigner in the cell with me, a Russian. So but he was in there longer, so he had gotten able to get a better spot. If you're a foreigner in prison there, things like a better sleeping spot in the cell can slowly come with time. It's very hard for you to hustle and negotiate that stuff, because it's harder for you to know what's going on and to build relationships. But still, if you're in there for longer, things like that can happen. So he had been there longer, so was up against a wall. So he had just a wall on one side of him, which in a cell, sleeping in a cell like that, that's a dream. I had people on every side of me, two of them wanking each other off sometimes. At the foot of me were these poor Burmese boys that had to sleep in the toilet itself. And on this side, I had a young Thai guy. So when you're sleeping like this for a few nights, I'm not ashamed to say that after a couple of nights in there, maybe some people would have broken sooner, but I broke after 2 nights. I did throw an arm over and a leg over him to spoon, just to get more comfortable. Now, when you're in a situation like that, that might sound pretty far out to a lot of people, but once you are in a prison in Thailand, doing something like that, one, you are so uncomfortable. Just picture yourself, you're lying there for hours, knowing, really uncomfortable, knowing that you'll be a little bit more comfortable if you would just throw. Everyone who sleeps in a normal bed knows sometimes you want to roll over, sleep onto the side, and sometimes you will cuddle a girlfriend or a boyfriend, wife or husband, or a pillow next to you because it's more comfortable. Now, when you're sleeping on a hard concrete floor with a very thin yoga mat, hours lying there, I had my breaking point and I just spooned with him. And trust me, when you're in that situation, it just makes a lot of sense. So I'm not ashamed to say it now. What else could I tell you? So there's a designated captain of the cell. The captain of the cell was Thai. He looked like he was an older guy. He looked like a soccer coach. He was a good guy, like friendly, and I got to have as good a relationship with him as I was able to in the 3 months I was there. Outside of the cell during the day, he would invite me to go and eat with him in a special section in the kitchen area. So we got along well. But despite of that, there's only so much that the captain of the cell can do. So order, it's not totally chaotic in that cell. So in the prison, they have a couple of ways of keeping order. And most of the time, the people in the cell do want order because you're crammed in there. And they do that on purpose to make you want to have some kind of order. They also have... It both promotes, but people in the prison, the other prisoners basically naturally delegate people to be in charge. It's a kind of unofficial thing. So that you've got this person they call a captain. He's just another prisoner, but is kind of unofficially in charge of the cell. And also within each other, people are keeping, just say, a kind of prison order, because 99% of the people want some order and not chaos and everyone fighting all the time and making a mess and making it stink and dirty and too much violence and things like that. I'll tell you about some of the violence. So it's hard sleeping on the floor like this. One night, one of these younger guys I told you about before, he starts slapping on me with an open hand because I figure out he thinks that I'm on his part of the floor. His part of the floor or not, to me, that's an unreasonable way to communicate something to me, so I start slapping back at him. Pretty much, so he calls out, can't remember, he squeals something in Thai, and pretty much straight away, 5 other locals hop up. Now remember, I'm lying down on the floor, I'm lying down. They hop up and they start punching me in the head. I defended myself as best as I could, but yeah, I took some pretty good punches to the head. It wasn't pretty. So there's not much I could do but take that beating. They stopped briefly. I yelled at them and they punched me again harder. So in that situation, when I'm yelling at them, they just hear an angry voice. They actually have no idea what I'm saying. In the prison, the Thai people are actually automatically afraid of foreigners. I'm not a scary guy or a violent person or an actual criminal, but they don't know that. So they're scared of you for 2 reasons. One, they don't know what you're in for. Most of their experience with foreigners, say from Hollywood movies, as far as they know, you're a real gangster and a killer, and they're afraid of you. 2, they never have any idea what you're saying, so when you yell at them, they get scared and they want to protect the order. So I actually have I do still feel angry about that, because I would have preferred civil conversation over a floor space. But I understand that, it did feel it did feel really unfair, and it hurt. I got mashed. I was lucky not to be knocked unconscious. Basically, that punching I told you about. So I yelled at them. They punched me in the head and stopped. I yelled at them again. They punched me in the head again. That happened 3 times before they stopped. So I did pretty well. Look, that's a fight I lost, 5 onto 1, knowing that I could not retaliate at all. So I was pretty lucky not to get knocked out. And the next day, almost my whole face was black and swollen with bruises. But hey, it's prison. I actually feel pretty good now that was pretty much the worst day. But that's some of the kinds of things you could face as a foreigner in the jail cell. But once you knew it was pretty hard to avoid that. I felt like that was a pretty unpredictable situation. I mean, someone slapping me over a floor splash, which I think I was not over their line. I might still do the same thing again. But anyway, like I said, that was the worst thing that happened. I don't mind. On this side of me, not the guy that I was occasionally spooning with, on the other side of him, there was another local guy. His name was Bong. So in my time there, I got to make a lot of friends, maybe about 40 or 50 different friends amongst locals and Thai people. So we got to talk a little bit, and I got to hear a little bit of his story. He come in a similar time as me. I wouldn't say I liked the guy, but I think because he was just there, and there was something about his personality which was kind of funny. He was a little bit more outgoing than some of the other Thai people and interested in having a conversation. Anyway, so he was in for meth. He got caught with, let's just say, about this much meth. The cops caught him. And when he first told me that story, you might think, well, so what? He deserved to be there. Maybe so. But in my time in Thailand, I got to know a bit about the cops in Thailand. Now, the cops arrested this guy for having meth for the purpose of selling this much meth. The police have this much meth for the purpose of selling this much meth. So knowing that, I just felt sorry for the guy, because when the police arrests someone like that, it is in Thailand, it is only to protect their business. And if they catch you with drugs like that, the first thing they ask you for is money, and as long as you have the money for them, they will let you go. It's only if a guy doesn't have the money, then he gets put in prison. And so we would sometimes chat in the cell. He would tell me this story. And he had his court for his sentencing in the time I was still there. So he comes back from his court one day, and he's crying. So Bong was not a weak guy, by the way. He was quite a tough guy. I'd often see him fighting in the yard. He comes back to the cell one day to tell me he's had his sentencing, and he's crying because they've given him 25 years. So, I just felt really sad for the guy. Sometimes out in the yard he was a real pest, pestering me most of the time for cigarettes. But didn't have a lot of healthy, normal friends in the prison, so you kind of just take what you can get. There were a lot of tattoos being made in prison. It was a popular pastime. I had never got any, but I think if I was in there for longer, I would have, if only just to kill the time. I thought about it, but I was too busy spending my money on smokes to get a tattoo. Basically, if it's not one of your friends doing the tattoos, you have to hustle to get one, because you need to pay the guy who has the bamboo stick and the ink to do it for you. So people would do tattoos in the prison cell at night, because you weren't allowed to do tattoos. And if you were tattooing yourself, occasionally the guards would do an inspection, like maybe once a month. You'd be called into a room to take your shirt off, and they'd see if you'd gotten any new tattoos. I don't know. People were doing tattoos all the time, so I don't know how it was. But basically, you could corruptly negotiate with the guards to get away with anything. So um, that was probably how you do it. So to get away with something like a tattoos, you probably have to be there a bit longer and more established to be able to say to one of the junior staff to negotiate permission with one of the guards, hey, don't bust me when you find out that I have a tattoo. Pretty lucky I didn't. Hepatitis is pretty, and HIV and everything is pretty common in a prison. I was pretty reckless while I was in there. I remember trying to give myself a prison tattoo. I'm a big fan of Scarface, and I always remember that opening scene in Scarface where Al Pacino comes across the border and the prison guards pull him aside and say, "We know you're full of shit. You've been in a prison gang, and we can tell by the tattoo of the swallow you have here." So I've always wanted to be a cool gangster, so I did try to give myself a tattoo there one day with a razor blade. And it was the Jew, actually, while I was sitting there trying to do it, that came up to me and said, "Hey, Ryan, you're crazy. Hepatitis is actually rife in the prison here." But I didn't listen to that Jew because he was always hoarding the Pepsi and never shared. So it stuck for a couple of weeks, you guys, but I'm not an expert tattooist. It didn't go in deep, so it's not there now. Actually, I tattooed 2 letters, L and A. Happens to be that LA symbol that's on the LA baseball cap. But I did it because my kids' names are Levi. I wanted an L and an A for my kids' names, Levi and Alex. I didn't expect to be talking about this on the podcast, but I haven't seen them since I was in prison. It's a pretty sad story. I think I'll save for another time. But I hope one day they watch this, because I think one of the reasons they don't see me is that their mum talks a lot of shit about me, and they don't know that I tried to tattoo their initials onto my hand while I was in there, and also graffitied their names around the walls of the place. Another pretty dangerous activity if you're not connected. If the guards catch you doing that, you're in trouble. So, Levi and Alex, if you ever this week or in 10 years' time, I hope one day that you watch this podcast and know that your dad is cool and your names are written all over the walls in the prison in Koh Samui. I hope that you never go there to read them. Well, this has been a surprising episode. I just planned to let you guys know a little bit more about what the inside of the cell is like and what life is like inside the cell. And we took a sad little detour, but hey, that's okay. This is kind of like a little bit of a personal diary for me. I hope that you guys like hearing it, because I like sharing these stories with you. Tune in next week for another one. I'm Ryan Leon. See you then.